You are listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. Thank you for downloading and subscribing. Coming to you virtually live from high atop the historic Raleigh building in beautiful downtown Raleigh. The NCF&B takes the listener behind the scenes to tell the stories of the people that contribute to the creation of the food and beverage community of North Carolina. And now, the misfits in the dish pit, the faces of the front. They are Max Trujillo and Matthew Weiss.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And today we are going from the triangle to the triad. And no doubt, many of you have taken your kids out to the zoo or have had a reason to go to Asheboro. Well, now you've got two reasons, or you could stop on the way at Four Saints Brewing out there in Asheboro. We have the owner and CEO, Joe Mcluskey.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Appreciate y'all having us out.
Yeah, man, you drove out here on Hurricane Eve.
Yeah, it's not the first time that I've driven through the Triangle on a hurricane day. I did some deliveries last fall? Last spring? Yeah, last fall I did some deliveries through a hurricane. So we're dedicated to what we do.
Wow. Well, you have the saintly,
got protection.
Yeah, protection
there's
behind
just
you. So.
Always a halo over us. Sometimes a little tarnished, but it's there.
Yeah, so Asheboro. I've been told many times to get to Asheboro,
Yes.
and I have yet to go. That's shame on me. I've been here for 7 years, almost 8 years now in North Carolina. Yeah, tell us, where is Asheboro?
So Asheboro is pretty much center of the state. So it's about an hour and a half west of Raleigh, about an hour 15, hour 20 northeast of Charlotte, 30 minutes south of Greensboro, 40 minutes southeast of Winston, and then about an hour and a half east of Hickory. So then they kind of give everybody a little pinpoint. I mean, we're dead center. We're not geographically the dead center of the state. That's a little town.
Centrally located.
We're centrally located.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
A little tidbit history. The geographic center of North Carolina is a little place called Wynot, North Carolina.
Why not?
Wynot. WHYNOT. And there's a lot of stories and rumor about how that got named Wynot, but that's the center of the state. So Asheboro, if you look at a map, Asheboro looks like it's the center of the state, and it's a great. I mean, just from that aspect, which 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours to the beach, it's 3 hours to the mountains, and then the major metropolitan areas all around us within an hour and a half. It's pretty nice.
And is that where you're from?
No. Long story short, my parents grew up in southwestern PA, so a little south of Pittsburgh. They moved to Dunn, North Carolina, started a family, and then moved us back up to Pennsylvania to grow up around grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, and so I was 5 when we moved back up to Pennsylvania. Told everybody I hated Pennsylvania and I was going to come back down to North Carolina because I was
five.
I was 5. Yeah.
Well, that and you knew that Franco Harris the ball touched the ground, so he didn't catch that ball in air, and the Raiders should have gone to the World
Saints
Series.
and immaculate
Super Bowl.
reception.
Are you a Raiders fan?
Just win, baby. Silver and black. So I get it. I get why you don't like them.
I mean,
That's
if I knew it was going to be this kind of party, I mean, I would have wore some different colors.
We'll keep it easy. We'll talk about things we all love. That's
Max
beer.
is going to plug in black and yellow, black and yellow.
Wiz Khalifa, my favorite.
You can keep that. No, but I moved back down to North Carolina in 2004 for a teaching job. There was a teacher shortage, and I moved down, did a tour of the state, interviewed in Raleigh, interviewed in Greensboro, Charlotte, and when I interviewed in Asheboro, it just something said that was where I was supposed to be. Now, there was no alcohol in Asheboro at that time. So Asheboro was dry for 50 plus years, and so actually on my interview, walking down the halls of the school with vice principal, we were walking down and It's like, oh, there's the library, and there's the first grade hall, and Asheboro's dry, and there's where the PE room is. And, yeah.
Excuse me?
And she did. She stopped right there in the middle of the hall, and she said, "Did you hear what I said?" And I was like, "Yeah, there's the library." And she said, "No, did you hear what I said about Asheboro being dry?" And I said, "Yeah, I heard you." And she said, "Do you know what that means?" I said, "Yeah, there's no alcohol here.
It doesn't rain.
It's it's an arid.
Great! It's great weather. No rain."
It's an arid community. I said, "Yeah, it means no alcohol." And she said, "Is that going to be a problem?" And so the 26-year-old part of me was like, "Yeah." The other part is like, "You need a job to buy that alcohol, so no, it's not a problem."
Yeah.
So I was like, "No, it's not a big deal." And so the whole county wasn't dry. Like Randleman, you could go up and get beer and wine and booze, but Asheboro was dry until 2008. So
Till 2008.
yeah, till 2008, it was completely dry. You could not go into any restaurant and sit down and have a burger and a beer. You could not go into the grocery store and buy beer with your groceries. The only place that you could have any kind of liquor.
Oh, let me guess. Church.
No, I don't know. I have
I'm
to check
sure
on
you
that
could
one.
have sacramental wine in church.
Oh,
Possibly.
Yeah.
The country club, because it was a private club, and then there was one restaurant that did brown bagging where you could bring in a bottle of wine. They would charge you a corking fee,
Right.
And then you drink your wine while you eat the dinner. So.
I'm
just
sure
wish-
that wasn't like. I'm sure that probably was a crime, but wasn't enforced.
No, it was legal.
It was legal to do that?
Yeah, once alcohol came to Asheboro, once it was ratified and brought in, brown bagging became illegal.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was fine before, but now it's
illegal.
not. So
Now don't show up.
I
with
love
your
how the
private-
country clubs are fine. It's like, oh yeah, if you're rich, you're totally fine. You can get drunk.
But I just wish you would have said to the principal, no, that's not a problem at all. Just where do I go after work
Just
to get a
where do
beer?
yeah. Well,
No, you didn't hear me.
So what kind of teaching were you doing? What, was this at an elementary school or where were you?
I spent 5 years as a fourth grade teacher,
Oh, wow.
and then I spent 3 years as a instructional facilitator and an instructional coach, working with the adults than the kids. And then I spent the last year and a half, 2 years with as a fifth grade teacher. And so prior to coming to North Carolina, I was in Pennsylvania, and I worked at an alternative high school teaching 9th and 10th grade, just everything. And I spent time with doing adult education at RCC, and taught second graders. So I've taught kind of the gamut. So, yeah.
How do you? What are your thoughts right now? Are these teachers having to do all the online study or education?
It's nuts. My wife is still a teacher.
Yeah.
She's an AIG consultant, facilitator, whatever they call them. But she had to do that this past year when March 16th happened and kids weren't going back to school. And all the teachers that we knew, they had to just. It was like everybody was a first year teacher again, learning how to do this thing all over again that they were expected to do. And it was almost like almost daily, if not weekly, their expectations changed. It was do this, and then they would do it for a week, and it was no, okay, that was great, now do this. And because everybody was trying to learn, it was just absolutely brand new. So with the new school year coming in, and she goes back to work on the 10th. It's still kind of up in the air. They're doing Asheboro School District, Asheboro City, and Randolph County are both doing the AB. So
They're splitting the populace.
Right.
To you're either at home or you're at school, and then you just kind of switch back and forth.
Right. So you have that option or the all online option, and so that again, the teachers are trying to figure out how do I have a continuous form of education when I'm only going to see the kids in person twice a week. So am I coming up with two different lessons, like in person and online?
Bottom line is we got to figure out, are these kids learning? Because that's the whole point, and the whole reason they're going is like, are they actually going to pick up? The one thing I know that they are learning is they're learning how to use a computer, and they're using how to interact, which, to be honest, might be the best education that they ever could have. Now, hopefully, in that process, they're also learning some facts and figures and some historical content, and I remember things now because I learned it from my teacher.
I have a 6-year-old, and she at first loved the idea of being in front of the computer. It's screen time, but she does not like online learning. She wants to be in person. She wants to be with people.
Yeah.
So she's excited about going back, but she's not happy about the online thing. So we're going to do the A/B thing with her, and we're going to see how that goes. And it's just what it is. Yeah. It's really all we can do. And then we can come back and we have a beer.
Yeah. So for being in person and being a brewery, how did that work for Four Saints during this whole time? You guys were selling beer, like retail, but now you've reopened.
Yeah. When March 17th happened, when that executive order happened, we went to, like a lot of breweries, we went to off-premise only, so selling cans and crowlers, and that kept us, it kept us afloat. From that moment on, we dropped from pre-COVID revenue to, we dropped to about 50% of that. Mm-hmm. And so it was a hard hit right up front, and we were still selling cans to grocery stores and bottle shops that were still doing off-premise. Obviously, kegs were pretty much done. Yeah, their restaurants weren't buying. And so we did that we stayed off-premise with off-premise only up until June 16th. So that was even past the initial phase 2 on May 22nd. And so we kept with that, and then we decided it was time to finally open up. And we made that choice based off of the surveys that the North Carolina Craft Brewers Guild did for the general customers. And then we did one for our customers. And all of that information we put together basically said, even on May 22nd, most of the people were not comfortable coming back until about a month later. And so we started to see the revenues even decline even more, because people were going, well, if I can't sit here and have a beer, I can go over there and have one of your beers.
Yeah.
And so we were also looking at the numbers and keeping in touch with talking with our employees and seeing what they were comfortable with, because if our employees aren't comfortable, if they don't feel safe,
you're not going to provide.
Yeah, they're not going to give the right kind of. They're not going to give the hospitality that we expect and that our customers expect, and so then we have the potential for a loss of customer. So making sure our employees were first and foremost feeling safe and comfortable was number one. And so then we opened up on June 16th with all the rules, and 98% of the people that come into our tap room are cool with it. They do what they're supposed to do. They get the importance of it. They get that if we don't, then we shut down again. And so that that 2% that want to bite back on the mask or any of those other pieces, those customers are always easy to remember. We always remember that squeaky wheel, but we're focusing on those customers that come in and are like, what do I got to do? You just tell me, because we want to support you guys, and if this is what you guys have to do, then it's what we're going to have to do to make sure that our neighborhood brewery stays open. And so it's focusing on those people and those customers that really are there to do that, to support us, and it brightens our day and just empowers our employees too. So
well. I want to take a quick break, talk about one of our sponsors, but think about this before we come back. I want to know the transition from being this teacher in a dry county, and then you're like, screw it, I'm making booze in this area, and go from there. But first, I do want to talk about the Folk Foundation. Folk Foundation has been a fantastic sponsor of the NCF&B podcast for a good while now, and they are champions of all good things crafted in North Carolina and the folks that make them. So whether you could be a brewer or an artist or a musician or a podcaster, these are the types of people and products that the Folks Foundation endorses and supports. They themselves are a 501c3 nonprofit, and through ongoing grants, they also have a publication, their Folks Journal, that is released quarterly, and a journal store that is coming out, and a bar that is coming out in New Bern, and an album that they just released. They're doing a lot of great things. This album in particular, it's a vinyl album, an actual record called the Carolina Quarantine Project, where they had Carolina-based musicians, duos or solo artists, showcase songs that were written while sheltered in place. The album is already on sale. You can go to folksfoundation.org, and all of the money goes directly to the artists that participated. So you are really supporting both art, the Folks Foundation, artisans in general, when you do things like buy the Quarantine Project or support the Folks Journal. So go to folksfoundation.org. One more time, go to folksfoundation.org.
And Max, Another thing, while you're listening to the Carolina Quarantine Project at home, just relaxing, and maybe you want to save a trip to the store for your groceries, especially during this time, do you know that you can get farm fresh produce, kitchen staples, and pantry items delivered right to your doorstep starting at just $15?
I know that.
You do know that.
Because I know that Hungry Harvest exists. And Hungry Harvest, who was once a guest of the show and then came on as a sponsor of the show. And then we've collaborated with them on a bunch of
many occasions,
special projects, like even with our happy hour series we did recently. They've come back to the fold, and Hungry Harvest is here to help support the show because they curate weekly variety boxes of healthy produce. They pack up right in their facilities here in the Triangles, and they make no-contact deliveries directly to your door with a team of local drivers.
And each delivery saves at least 10 pounds of food from going to waste. So support the work of Interfaith Food Shuttle with produce donations. So
that's right. So sign up at hungryharvest.net and you can use promo code NCFB30 for 30% off your first harvest. Check them out, hungryharvest.net. All right, Joel, we're back. So where did you come off with this radical idea? So let's go through this step at least.
Sure.
You're now a teacher.
Yep.
In Asheboro, not Asheville.
Not Asheboro. Right, Asheboro.
And you're teaching fourth grade at the time.
Correct.
I assume you just always kind of liked beer because you're a dude living in America.
I'm a person. Yeah. So beer is good. Yeah.
Where did this transition happen?
That's a great question. So, in 2000, I mean, it all goes back to 2008. That's really where everything started. My wife and I, she was a second grade teacher in the same school, and so we had left town, went and got married, and we voted early and for the referendum for FOR. That was what it was. That was the big deal. We left, went and got married, came back, and Asheboro was wet. We said it was the greatest wedding present that anybody could ever give us. And that year is when Andrew and his wife moved to, they live in Randleman, and Amy, his wife, was teaching at the same school. So my wife taught second grade, Amy taught third grade, I taught fourth grade. His oldest daughter, Aubrey, was in my wife's second grade class, and then they had a first grader as well. So we got to know Amy and the girls really well because we were with them. We saw them 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And so one day I was sitting in my classroom. Amy came in, and she said, so you and Kristen are pretty decent people. I was like,
There's
it's a great compliment.
Thank you, Amy. That's you are too. And she said, and I have a husband. And I said, yes, I've heard of him. And she said, well, yeah, and she stumbled. I said, where were you getting with this? And she said, will you be my husband's friend?
Starting the bromance.
And so at the time, Andrew was working with Lowe's Home Improvement, and so he was a manager there at one of the store up in Greensboro, and he would either be at work at 6 a.m. and then not be home until 13 hours later, or he would go in and be there by noon and not be home for 12 to 13 hours. And so he didn't really there wasn't a lot of room for just getting to know people. And so I was like, yeah, I mean, you and the kids seem like decent people, so why not? So we started hanging out and started watching.
Did you have to sign a contract or anything? Or?
I thought she was going to be like, we have some skin cream from Rodan and Fields. We'd like to bring you into the fold.
I was wondering if I was going to be working with Avon or something of that nature. It didn't happen though, thankfully. I would have killed it though. Anyway, so we started hanging out. We started watching football together. He's a gun enthusiast, collector, and not like a wacko one. Like really enjoys it. So we'd go out and shoot guns. And then one day he said, so I brew beer. And I was like, why didn't you start with that?
Yeah,
like that should have been like the first thing that we did. And so there's a couple other guys and two other guys named Jonathan and Pete. And once a month, what Kristen would call our man days, which were Saturdays, we'd go over to Andrew's garage and we'd get there about 11 o'clock and have something for lunch. And then Andrew would start getting everything together to do a homebrew, and so we would brew a beer that day. And when I say we, I mean he, because the other three of us just stood around, beer in hand, going, "What you doing? What's that? Can I touch that? I'm sorry, I touched that. I shouldn't have touched that. What do I do now? Do I dump this here? We don't." And so he really put up well with us, and so we learned about the brewing process. He was and still is the consummate professional and the guy that the wizard. I feel he is a time traveling wizard. And so we would brew the beer, and then when the beer was done, we did really good cleanup, and then.
That's an important part.
Right. Well, that's where he would sit back and drink a beer and go, now do this, now do this. And
that's worth it.
That's how I feel when I make dinner. I'm like, all right, who's doing the dishes?
You know that was how I courted my wife, like the original thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like she literally wrote, like, oh, hate to cook, love to clean. And I said, I love to cook, but I hate to clean. And it's a match ever since.
There you go.
Sort of those lines have blurred since. But,
oh, yeah. Oh, you mean she's not washing dishes right now?
Unfortunately not.
So with that, after cleaning, we would throw something on the grill, and then we would drink what we had brewed the last time. And so it was those garage conversations that we started talking about opening a brewery or a bottle shop or something. Because again, this was pretty much right
2008.
when.
Yeah. This is financial crisis.
Not to get you in trouble. This is before it was legal to have alcohol in the county.
No, you were allowed to have alcohol. You could buy it. You could
bring it back
bring it in. You could, and home brewing was legal.
Fine.
Yeah, yeah. So that was fine.
But you can't purchase in the county,
right?
Which is so silly because even more so, you're losing out on all that tax revenue from people that are purchasing it anyway. They're going to get their booze.
Yeah, that's the fun. Another fun fact: Randolph County, the county itself, is still dry.
Oh,
all of the municipalities and the cities and towns are wet.
How funny!
The county itself is dry.
Can kids dance?
We pull the shutters down. And we turn the music on. We put up to 2. We don't.
Alexa, turn it 1 down, 1 lower.
Yeah.
So, but then that's where the conversation started. We would talk about this, this new time in Asheboro, and how cool would it be to have a bottle shop or a brewery. And so we had a very naive sense about what it would take to open up a brewery. I mean, for a little while, and I mean. Maybe for about a month, we were certain that we'd be able to put a brewery in our friend Jonathan's basement and sell beer out of there. Sure. Then we learned we couldn't.
That was after 5 or 6 beers.
Yeah. Really. I think Stacy would have been okay with it, his wife, but I don't know.
Sure, so the local authorities would have been okay with that.
We realized we would have to completely detach his basement from his house, which is just, there's not enough beer to put anybody through that. And so that was it. We had these conversations. We were looking through. We were talking to a lot of different breweries, just learning, and then there was a art festival and chili cook-off in Bicentennial Park, which is it's the main park in downtown Asheboro, and there was local people, local organizations, local charities, local produce, local food. And they had a beer garden, and the beer garden was a beer wagon with 1 tap that was Bud Light and 1 tap that was Miller Lite. Wow. And so we were sitting in this beer garden, which was so novel and so new, and so that part was exciting. And we're looking out at everything and going, "Wow, this town is really And it was 2008. It was the recession, and we saw people losing their jobs left and right at these large factories and large companies, and they were all supporting themselves. They were all picking themselves up by their bootstraps and saying, you know what? If they're not going to take care of us, we're going to take care of ourselves. And I love you, and I love you, and you love me, and we love our community. And so we're sitting there watching this, and we're drinking a Bud Light and looking at what this community is doing in this particular time. And that's where we had our handshake moment. We looked each other square in the eye and said, we're going to open up a brewery in Asheboro. And so that's where things got serious. And the first step in getting serious was going and talking to our wives, because up to this point, it was just like we would tell our wives about the brewery, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's nice. Oh, you guys are having so much fun."
So when you're cute little bromance. Yeah, about that, I'm going to need $20,000 out of our savings account to do this. Wait, what?
Yeah, and so we
a lot more than that, but I'm just saying.
Right, lots of zeros, and so I remember sitting down at dinner with Kristen, and I'll never forget, we were eating spaghetti. And she's sitting across the table, and I said, "So I need to talk to you about the brewery." And she said, "Oh, okay, yeah." And I said, "No, this is like put your fork down kind of moment. We need to talk about the brewery." And she just kind of looked at me, and then we talked it out. And I said, "Take your time and think about it." And a couple of days later, she came back and she was like, "I'm in." She goes, "You and Andrew, what you're going to do, what your plans are." She goes, "I know you." She goes, "I'm in." And so any man worth his salt who says that he doesn't need his wife's approval on anything is
lying.
Absolutely lying.
Or about to get a divorce.
Right. And Andrew had a similar conversation with Amy. And, our initially, when people hear Four Saints, they hear that name, they initially think that it's that it has something to do with the people, and that there was initially four guys, and that's not it. Like Jonathan and Pete had same conversations with their wives and realized it wasn't what they wanted to do, and they stepped away. Still two of our best friends, biggest supporters, and so what it has become is that the Four Saints. There's like, oh, there's Andrew and there's Joel, and like, yeah, and Kristen and Amy. Like, let's talk about them first, because if they hadn't said okay, if they weren't willing to walk with us through this, like if Kristen had told me no, it wouldn't have happened. So I mean that's. And that's where we started. That's how you
got it going.
That's how we got it going.
There is a beauty to this, and I can speak to this a little bit by with my participation at Y Hill, but especially through all this time, like when the breweries are all thriving, and there's another one popping up and another one popping up, you're like, oh, okay, who cares? Because it's already serving a purpose, but like right now during these quarantine times and very few places are open. Chris, the owner over at Chris and Sarah, the owners over at Y Hill, and I look at being open now more of like a service to the community more than ever. Now, don't get me wrong, we want to make some money off of doing this, but we also know that we're trying to be as fair and equitable even with our staff and as much as we can. But we really see it like, man, people are coming together. There's so many people that are gracious and thankful that we're open, and it's like a beacon, and it's there. So I kind of understand. I understand a little bit more now as to the way you were thinking about this. But at Bicentennial Hall, realizing like, man, this community comes together. There's a lot going on. But there are certain elements that are not there. And no offense to Bud Light or Miller Lite. By the way, that was probably all just one keg that was coming off. I always go back to the Duff beer episode of The Simpsons, where it's Duff Dry, Light, and Extra, whatever, and it all was just coming off of one keg. But yeah, why not have a beer that is made locally here in this town, that this is what the community's drinking.
Right.
And that goes back to like the beginning of all towns, and like this was the wine that we all make. The community makes this wine, we drink this wine, and we kind of go through. So I love that you were doing this to kind of connect the people to that. So understanding that, what does the business look like for those that haven't been, and how does that impact with the community? Like, is it's a brewery?
Yeah.
It's a tap room.
Right.
You obviously are making cans.
Yes.
Clink, clink, right here. But explain a little bit more, like how does that impact the community as a business?
So that was, we've got a couple different restaurants, and we've got other, there's a wine bar, but then there's the brewery. And so for us, the brewery is what we always envisioned it as, was that local pub, that place that was the third home, or the third place. You have your work home, and then here. And so that was what always drove us in our vision. We wanted this to be a community place where, regardless of economic status or race or where you're from or what language you speak or what lifestyle you live, that you come in here and all that stuff gets left at the door.
Yeah.
And you come in and you sit down and you have a beer. And that's what has always driven us, is we wanted to be a place that was welcoming, and the idea of community was pure. It was community. You came in and and we see it all the time. We see people that come in that we know are at odds with each other because of political ideologies or other things, and they come in and they sit down at the same table, and it used to clink glasses, but now we're using plastic. They just kind of like thumbs up each other and enjoy beer and catch up on the stuff that matters. They catch up on family life. They catch up on what's happening, talk about what's going on in the community and about things to make the community better. Because what a lot of people have come and told us is they realize that being able to have a place to have those conversations has helped them realize that everybody generally has the same goal, which is to make it better. Mm-hmm. It's just a different opinion on how to get there.
Yeah.
And that, agreed. And once everybody,
it sounds like somebody who's been to couples therapy.
I haven't, but maybe they have. Maybe that's what we are. Maybe Four Saints Brewing Company and couples therapy. Yeah. Hey, always looking for new revenue streams.
I'm sure every husband would be more apt to go into couples therapy if there was beer.
Like an IPA.
Yeah. So that's what we wanted our tap room to be. It's to be this place where people come in and it's they come in, they catch up on the local news, they share their news, they get to they meet new people. I can think of at least 4 or 5 different groups that got to know each other through the brewery, and now those are the people that they're inviting to their birthday parties and to graduations and those personal moments, come over for Christmas Eve kind of thing. Yeah. And it started over a pint of our beer, and that's, to me, that be able to be that a cog in that machine of connection, like that's awesome. That's it. That's what we want.
So let's talk stylistically for a second in nuts and bolts. What's if you guys have a calling card beer, or like do you have a let's say, for lack of a better term, a moneymaker? What would be your signature?
Yeah, actually, I would say you've got 2 of them there: the Potter's Clay Amber and the Hedrick's Hefeweizen. When we started, we started with 6 beers, and none of them were IPAs or pale ales. And people told us, "Oh, it's a beautiful sound."
Yeah.
And people told us that we were crazy. Like, you can't open up a brewery without an IPA. You can't open up a brewery without something hoppy. And the reality, what our thought process was, was that there were so many IPAs out there. There was so much hoppiness out there. We wanted to focus more on the maltier styles, because that's where Andrew's favorite styles are the Belgian styles. Yeah. And so we wanted to focus on malty. So we opened up with a blonde, the Hefeweizen, the amber, a ESB, a Belgian double, and a stout. And so our time and time again, our Omi blonde, the Potter's Clay amber, and the Hedrick's Hefeweizen are best sellers in the tap room, and they also do really well through distribution. We've finally got to the point where the Potter's Clay Amber and the Hedrick's Hefeweizen we're going to have available more often to be able to keep it on the shelves. We're using a mobile canner, and we're getting to that level of being able to find enough space to put stuff to be able to have long-term inventory to be able to keep those things on shelves. So, but yeah, the Potter's Clay Amber, this is easily one of my go-tos. We right now we've got 18 different beers on tap, and they run the gamut of everything from that blonde ale to then the new American light ale that you have, the Day of Domination, which is the lightest beer that we do. And up to imperial stouts and quads, and you name it, more than likely we've tried it.
So you're doing 18 beers at a time, or are you getting some participating breweries on tap as well?
No, those are all the beers that are on tap right now are all ours. Yes.
That's ambitious and pretty impressive too.
Yeah.
What's the facility like? Like, how big is your brewery?
We have a 7-barrel seven barrel brewing system.
Okay.
We have 4 15-barrel brights. Two 15-barrel brights, 2 15-barrel unitanks, and then 3 7-barrel fermenters, 15 and 2 15-barrel fermenters.
Yeah.
So 3 7s, 2 15s, 2 15 unis, 1 15 bright, 1 7 one 7-barrel bright, and then our 1-barrel pilot system that is being used more and more often now.
Yeah, that's where you can kind of do a small batch of experimental stuff.
Right. Yeah, and that's so and with everything that we've got on right now, I think only two. We had 2 that were pilot that kicked just this past week. So it was a Kolsch and a cream ale.
Wow.
So,
yeah, for those that don't understand what we're talking about here, it's like kind of geeky talk, and I barely understand this, but we just spoke with Norse Brewing last week, and then even Hill. It's all 7-barrel systems, so it's
for microbreweries.
For the microbreweries, we're all using a 7-barrel system, but I think in the end, it's kind of like where you store it and where you put it is like the next most important part. Is like you're kind of brewing. The brewing process is all similar,
right?
But then you've got to put them in places to hold them off, and then it's finding room to just hold the beer.
Yep,
and that's
100%.
the big caveat. I know at Y Hill, it's funny. It's not. Every time everybody sees this, like new employees, they'll come down and see and are walking. They like, whoa, this is amazing. But to our brewer, both Greg and our previous brewer, Brad, who was at Norse now, they're like, yeah, this is not impressive. We have these big holding tanks that all the beer gets put in, and then our bar is literally upstairs from the holding tanks, and so we're not kegging into small kegs or half barrels or full barrels. We're just putting them in these huge tanks and just tapping it from there, which is cool because it's like, wow, it's like comes from this big vat and the beer's coming from there. But ideally, it would be better to just have a bunch of kegs and store a big wall of them, and have it that way. And then incorporating. Well, I was going to say, and then incorporating the cans. That's also a pain in the ass, I imagine, because it's not. It's great for the marketing purposes. I mean, you were able to bring Four Saints Brewing here to the studio because you have cans, and so that's helpful. But I guess it also can be a struggle just with cost and time and how you want to distribute these things. It becomes a whole new endeavor. But it sounds like you have places to sell these beers because you were saying you have a wine bar and you have some tap rooms.
Yeah. So, and you're wholly right with that. So anybody that's getting ready to open any kind of business, whether regardless of what it is, I mean, the same mantra is true as like when you go to buy a house. Like there's never enough closets, there's never enough storage space because you're going to fill up what you got real quick, and that's where that's kind of where we are right now. But from a canning perspective, we use tap hopper canning out of Greensboro, and so it's a 100% mobile unit. They bring everything to us, including the cans. So we're not storing the cans, which is
nice.
That's a godsend. And so the Patrick and Nils and their group, they come in on canning day. They unload all the cans. They unload the canning system, put it all together. They start canning, and we can can through 3 or 4 7-barrel batches of beer, and they'll start at 8:00 and they'll be done before 2. And they just rock it through it, and they've got their process down pat. So right now we don't have a space to put a canning line, so them being able to do that right now, I mean through March and still currently, if we hadn't had cans, I don't know what we would have done. Yeah. And so I mean
it's turned into like probably your primary revenue source, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and you find our beers in a lot of the Lowe's grocery stores and a lot of the bottle shops because we do distribution throughout the Triangle and the Triad. So I've got 2 awesome sales guys. Charlie is out here in the Triangle. Matt is out in the Triad. And so they've just been, they've been pounding the pavement. And Charlie's, he started with us in, it was December. Started doing his thing, and he's growing our market around here. And Matt's been with us for 2.5, maybe 3 years, and so they get the cans out to the places that are looking to buy them, and they sell. I mean, we're not. I will never claim that we are the sexiest beer on the shelf. None of our beers currently have Galaxy hops in them. None of our beers, there's some breweries that they get this sexy edge to them, and we're not sexy. We're beautiful.
I was going to say if I had
timeless though, right?
Exactly. Well, that's it.
Beer.
Yes,
that's exactly. I was going to say a classic, clean style of beer that's really just well made and executed. And I will say, if Charlie hasn't already, he should hit up our good friends at Triangle Wine Company. If these beers are not already being sold there, they should be, because Triangle Wine Company is a great sponsor of our show. And they have great beers, great wines. They do a fantastic job of their website and delivery. If you go to trianglewineco.com, and they're also doing curbside service and all that good stuff. Also, if you go to trianglewineco.com, use the NCFB promo code to receive a nice discount.
Yeah. So we're giving you an opportunity, listeners, to get some beer you like because of us. That beer is less expensive.
That's right.
Because of us.
We're putting dollars back in your pocket.
That is a true
service.
It's a true service, true partnership between you and your listeners.
Really should be called Six Saints, because Matt and I we're just sitting over here doing saintly goods for everybody.
Well, we Charlie does have our beer in Triangle Wine.
Oh, perfect.
Absolutely, yeah. So he's taking care of that. He jumped on that pretty good. Yeah,
that's awesome. And if anybody buys some Four Saints at Triangle Wine Co., take a picture and tag us on Instagram, and
seriously,
we'll put it out there. That's always fun to see when people are doing the good work of buying alcohol and tagging us on it. I don't know. Is that a good work? Sure.
Yeah, sure it is. But your statement about it being timeless, that's what we wanted. We wanted to create beers that people were going to come back to time and time again. Not hey, let me try this. Oh, that was fun. Let me put that on Untappd so I can mark it as I've tried it and move on to something else.
Yeah.
And so things like the Hefeweizen and our bandwagon, the New England IPA, those are beers that people are they're coming back to them. They'll come into a tap room, they'll try something they'll try the new beer on tap.
Yeah.
But then they jump right back to that thing that they know. So, and we're good with that.
I'm going to selfishly hold some of these beers back because I'm going to go take them to the pool when I can actually enjoy them. That reminds me of what Adam Eckert of Crank Arms said one time famously on the show last year, when he said, everyone's favorite style of beer is new, and they just want the new thing and the whatever.
New, rare, and local.
Yeah, and so it's like you can keep remaking or reinventing yourself constantly, but there's a point where that's going to run out. I mean, like creativity at some point. I mean, culinary people say that all the time. It's like everything that could have ever been done food-wise has all been done before, and so you're just basically repackaging stuff in a new way. Or like you're creating. You're like, hey, I just thought of something new. You're like, yeah, that classic thing that was like very popular 300 years ago.
You just added jalapeno to it.
Yeah, exactly. But there's something cool about that, and I like the idea of being. Felicia and I talk about this all the time about not being trendy, but being timeless. It's about whether the way you dress or the clothes you have, the car you drive, whatever. Just be timeless. You don't want to look at a picture and go, "Oh, that was definitely summer 2020," because you decided to be exactly of the time. I mean, whatever. There's a good balance, but I like this. We're drinking this Day of Domination.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Day of Domination, American Light Ale. Today's the day, as it says on there. And this is just a crusher. I mean, this is what you probably were thinking at that park when you're like, we want to do this instead of having the Bud Light, the Miller Lite. It's like, that's what this is, because this is a light lager like that, but it also it has delicious flavors inside it, not just just beer. It's like, oh yeah, this is what we're trying to get at right here, is delicious crushable beer.
Well, that's what we have. We have people, that come in our tap and still come in our tap room, and they say, I'm a Bud Light drinker. What do I drink? What will you give me? And you usually steer them towards the blonde ale, right? And so we were talking about doing, as we're seeing a lot of breweries starting to do seltzers, and we keep going back and forth whether or not we want to do that or not. There's a point where you can say, the customer's always right, and if the customer's willing to pay for it, then you should do it. We're struggling with that, just as from a brand perspective. So Andrew was like, well, why don't we take Omi and basically make an Omi Light? And so not being a lager, but being a light ale, and that's what we came up with, and people are loving it because it's 3.8%. And it's exactly, especially at this
Day
hot
of Domination is 3.8%. Okay,
so even as hot, especially as hot as it is right now, that's people's yard work beer. That's their pool beer. I think it's got that much better taste. It's not just cold. There's some really nice nuances that come in there, and the idea of being timeless it's what matters.
I will say this though about the seltzers, and I will go on record as saying this because I definitely did not want to have anything to do with the seltzer for the longest time, and I mocked all of those drinking Trulies and White Claws, and then it was 100 degrees, and I was sitting at the pool, and someone went, "Just have one." I went, "Fine," and I had one, and I was like, "Okay, not awesome."
Right.
Not horrible.
Right.
Not too bad. I was thinking Matt Weiss would actually be a Truly fan or whatever, because you're usually like conscious of like, you don't want to carb up and do all that stuff, but
have you ever listened to me on the show?
Yeah, but you're like...
I rail against those things. I think it's the death of the culinary world.
Have you had one?
Yeah.
Okay, but this is good. This is where I'm going.
I've had a White Claw.
So, and I can't tell. Someone's listening. You should tell us what's better, White Claw or Truly, and there's others too. But this is what I like is brewers now are going, well, we can't avoid this. Like, if people want this, if people want low calorie, low carb, but also just even senseless, like light. I mean, LaCroix are so popular because they're just simple. It's like, let's just have carbonated water that has a little bit of flavor in it and doesn't pack on the pounds. So I get the need for it. So it'll be great when brewers that actually understand the science of how to make something delicious can get their hands into this. Because right now, that Miller and Bud Light, as we keep referring back to, is the equivalent of the Truly and the White Claw right now. It's like, yeah, that's fine because this is like a mass-produced whatever. But if we can get the artisanship back into it and then get some flavors in there that actually work well, I think we could see that category of alcohol like really be great.
Right.
So
I know Fauna Floor's been doing some. Glass Jug over in Durham just released one. And Chris had sent some to Andrew. I'm not sure if Andrew's has imbibed or enjoyed it yet. But it's that next thing, and it's being able to take this thing and be able to do it better, to do it at a point, and if it's what people are looking for, and who knows, where it's going to come next. But if it's something
may or may not be working on when it will.
Right. I mean, it's a thing in the moment. I mean, black IPAs were a thing in the moment,
right?
And there's still a couple that are out there, but it's not around. But you're not going to see people like the certain I don't know whether to name names or not, but Oscar Blues just did their French's mustard beer.
Oh, right.
I saw that.
So, I mean, they did that thing, and if it becomes a thing, God help us. But they gave it a try. They're like, hey, nobody's tried this, and I just saw somebody did a mayonnaise beer. So, I mean, it's just like...
No, everyone's going to try their thing, and I'm fine with... I just think, like, the whole thing about the White Claw and the Truly is, well, if you want something low in alcohol... somewhat low calorie, isn't that just a wine spritzer that we used to like back to the classics? Or couldn't we just have like a glass of wine or a 1-8-7 split of champagne is a bubbly, relatively low calorie in the whole alcohol
I want to know
something.
what does Matt Weiss at the pool drink? What do you typically put down when you're sitting there and you just want a couple things to?
I mean, honestly, right now I can't say that I'm drinking because I have a 15-month-old and a 4-year-old to watch at the pool. So I'm, my head is on a swivel. So,
all right, fair enough.
But like I think that if I was having my druthers at like, I would drink like a really cold, like actually I would like a little bit more hoppy, but really cold, just like easygoing IPA or Hefeweizen or something like that.
Okay, all right. I rarely see you drink beer, so that's always the.
Yeah. I rarely drink at the pool. So.
Yeah.
But when my kids are older, then I'll be drinking champagne at the pool. Yeah. If that makes it any better.
Well, we do need to wrap up pretty soon. Totally unrelated from everything, but I wanted to give them a shout out because this was really cool. Previous guest of the show, when Sean and Drew from Koan and Soka were on, they recently got a health score of 100.
Oh wow!
At Soka. Which never happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I know everyone's like, well, why? You should be able to get 100%. No, it's really hard to get 100%. I mean, getting like 97, 98, that's like, we should be in that category. But perfection is very difficult to attain. And they did like a week after the show. So I just want to give them a shout out to like kudos to Soka, all the hard work they did there because it is not easy to do that. And especially in this time when we're very concerned about contamination, cross-contamination, and safety. Well done, boys and ladies. Well done, everybody over there.
Joel, what's your health score?
We actually don't have to have one anymore.
Oh, because you're a brewery,
because,
right?
The tap room.
Yeah.
Now, the highest our last score was a 98 or a 99.
Yeah. But breweries inherently have to be incredibly, because otherwise you're going to make pretty crappy beer.
Right. Yeah.
But restaurants are tough because you've got so many moving parts.
Yeah.
You've got the dish pit, you've got the hot line, you have the cold line.
Oh, absolutely.
You have the bar, and then you have the dining room. And then we also had new regulations for health code regulations that lowered the number of what was safe.
Right.
So all the refrigeration had to be colder by a few degrees, which was tough because everybody's systems were all set to be a little warmer. And so it is a challenge to be in correct compliance with all health regulations.
Yeah, it's one of those things that if just the general consumer understood everything that went into it, and when they see somebody has a 98 or a 99 or a 100, to realize like, holy cow, and really then to realize
attention to detail
like that's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Hey Joe, I want to one last question before we get out here, and we ask almost every microbrewery this, but what's the goal in terms of like how big you would like to get? I mean, are you of the mind? I mean, you have distribution in the triangle and the triad. Like, is the goal one day so one of the big company buys you guys out and you guys can sit back and then go back to home brewing and just enjoying, or do you want to just keep it going and make a good living and enjoy what you're doing?
It's a great question. Andrew and I have always talked about Murphy to Manio. Not ever looking to get past state lines.
Okay.
And so to be able to be a brewery of the size, to be able to provide that amount of beer at a level that allows us to do what we love without losing our minds or losing our shirts. We've talked about having a second tap room somewhere. We're looking at. So I mean that's the extent of it.
Could you do that on a 7-barrel system that you have now?
If we added some more fermenters, absolutely. Mm-hmm. If we had some more fermenters, some more storage, and another body. So Andrew's still doing all the brewing. It's the thing that he loves.
I assume he doesn't work at Lowe's anymore.
No. He left that a while ago. He still hesitantly goes in there to buy things every now and again, but he still this is his. He's one of those few people that have been able to take something that he does really well and something he's passionate about and make that his daily thing. There's a lot of people that are really good at something, but they're not passionate at it, and that's what they make money in, and then they go home and they play the guitar or vice versa. Yeah. They're passionate about it, spend all day, but don't make any money doing it. But he's one of those few lucky individuals that both parts are coming together. So him giving up that brewing is going to be tough. But in order to grow, we'll have to bring on another body, more storage, and some more fermentation. But Murphy to Manio is the goal. At least another tap room somewhere. And a lot of those plans have been put on hold, and it's been good. When March happened, we had a lot of things that we were looking to do, and things had to stop. And it kind of came to a screeching halt, like everybody. But it's given us some time to sit back and to reevaluate why we were planning on doing these things, how we were planning on doing these things, and whether we really should. And so it's helped us kind of gain some clarity in where Four Saints is going.
Yeah. Cool.
I love that. Well, before you get out of here, we're going to send you on your way with a pint of Proof Alcohol ice cream that you can enjoy. Proof Alcohol ice cream helps you think differently about your dessert, and every pint comes with a 7% ABV, so it's like having a nice IPA, but instead it's creamy and delicious with some caramel or some bourbon, or you can do coconut rum, apple pie moonshine, strawberry moonshine. There's so many great flavors there. Go to proofalcoholicecream.com for more information. You can also get them at not Lowe's, the home improvement center, but the Lowe's grocery store. Yeah, who came up with that name first, by the way? I smell a lawsuit. So you can go to Lowe's, you can go to Harris Teeter, or the aforementioned Triangle Wine Company, who also has the Proof Alcohol ice cream. And you know who else? Not a sponsor now, but good friends. Butcher's Market has Proof Alcohol ice cream there, too. It's still good friends of ours, and so you can get that Proof Alcohol ice cream wherever you're going, which is great for them.
All the wine shops, actually, that I deal with. Wine Feed, Bodega, and Durham.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. Proof. get it. Think differently about dessert. Thanks, Joel, for being on. So if you're out in the Triad, or go pick up some Four Saints beer, and you will drink very merrily.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the NC F&B podcast. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes, and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.